चलने से पहले मैंने उड़ना सीखा है। चलने से पहले मैंने उड़ना सीखा है। सपने मैंने खुली आंखों से देखे। संग हो जाओ तुम भी, मिल जाएंगे पंख तुम्हारे सपनों को भी। जी हाँ, नमस्कार दोस्तों। फिर हाजिर हूँ इस बार उड़ान के साथ। उड़ान, गिविंग विंग्स टू योर ड्रीम्स। ऐसे बच्चे जिन्होंने चलने से पहले उड़ना सीख लिया। ये मुलाकातें जो हम करने जा रहे हैं, all these talks which I'm going to do are with children, child prodigies who are doing so amazingly well in their life and have become an inspiration to many of us. So let us meet a few of them through this podcast. See you every week in this podcast. And I hope your children, or probably you yourself, if you are a youth, will be inspired by these children. Namaskar दोस्तों. Once again, I'm here with yet another episode of UDAAN. And today we have a very wonderful guest, Sharvanth. Welcome, Sharvanth.
Hello, ma'am. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Great. And Sharvanth, for to know, he is a young author. And author at this age, yes, he has already had 4 of books released and 5th one is in pipeline. And more to come when he starts to speak of her own self, his own self. So yes, Sharvanth, I will now request you to please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sharvanth here. I'm a 14-year-old young author. I've published 4 books right now. I'm working on my 5th. I'm also working with several organizations. I'm associated with 5 organizations right now. I'm working as a content writer, a journalist, an editorial coordinator, and so on. I've also had several awards facilitated to me by the India Book of Records and Asia Book of Records. And I've also won several awards from different writing competitions. Moreover, I've addressed several schools, several colleges, and other speaking platforms as well. This is a gist about myself, about who I am, and what I do.
Amazing. This is so amazing. A small child addressing different schools, different children, and working on the books to spread the word which is about the literacy, like that we should all be reading, because a child, if he is able to do so much, then he is inspiring us to really make books our best friend. So that is what happened with Sharmanth, and I will ask her now, how did he get interested in all of this? And when was that first book released? Because he's only 14 as of now, and so many books to his name. So when did the journey start and how did it start?
All right. It all dates back to when I was around 7 years old. You know, a 7-year-old kid, it's been 8 years so far since that happened. That was my first ever instance that I had made my passion towards reading and writing. When I was 7 years old, one of my father's friends said he was coming over. As an enthusiastic 7-year-old kid, I'd expected them to, bring chocolates, gifts, or whatnot. But to my surprise, instead, they had 2 books in their hands. That was the first time I was ever exposed to books apart from my own academic books. I had never read storybooks before, and I've never taken the initiative to read one, so it didn't usually matter to me. But then, as I was gifted with those 2 books, initially I got it with such a joy in my face because I didn't want to disappoint the guests, of course. But then, I ended up not reading those books. I ended up keeping it on my, under my closet. Uh, I had another closet that I had where I kept all my stuff. But this book, I didn't, plan on keeping it on my main closet. Instead, I kept it on a closet that I least bothered about. A few days had passed by, I think a few weeks something. And then one day after school, I was watching television. 7-year-old kid, of course. I got to spend some time, and I was watching television that day. And there was an ongoing series about the army, about who the army is and what they're about. I loved army at that time, with all those guns, working for our country, saving our country, and that patriotism that they have in their hearts that had really inspired me. And if the two books that I've been gifted with, they were also about the army, about who they are and what they do. It's about a book where they talk about the highest award given to an army person, or what do you call? It's called as the Paramveer Chakra. It is the
Right.
highest honor award that's been given to a person in the army. As the book was about the army and I was quite interested about it, I ended up going to that closet. I picked up the book and I started going through it. I turned on the television and then I started working to my way into that book. That was the first time I was ever exposed towards reading books. That when I reflect back on that time, it really makes me wonder how much I've changed since then. How that one instance that got me to where I am today. It occurs for everybody. You never know when you come across what you love doing. Let it be
Absolutely.
any age, let it be when you're young, when you're old, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Right. Moving on, after I started reading those books, I'd been really inspired by it. The book was so good, I ended up going to the same book 4 times. I still have that book with me. It's one of my prized possessions that I have that I would cherish forever. After my mother saw that I was pretty interested in reading books, she ended up getting me to the library where I could start borrowing books for myself. That was the first time I was ever exposed to a lot of books at the same time.
Hmm.
At first, it was pretty dazzling, as I wasn't exposed to a lot of books before, but I ended up getting the hold of it. I started off with quite a few classics, the usuals, of course, the comics, the tinkles and whatnot. And then I started making my way towards much more advanced books. As I went on, I explored a lot of genres. I uncovered a lot of books, and I ended up learning a lot in the process as well. As of right now, I've read over 400 books from different authors, and I've
Wow.
also covered lots of genres as well. That's one personal accomplishment of myself. Moving on, after I had spent, around 4 years reading books, there was a time when lockdown hit. Of course, one of the worst times to be in at being myself at such an young age. I had nothing to do. I was confined within four walls and having nothing to do. Books were the one companion that I had throughout. Without books, if you ask me frankly, I couldn't have survived the lockdown. There's one fun thing I'd like to talk about. you know, since we had lockdown and we couldn't go outside, they got this like one time window each month that we could go outside and buy groceries and whatnot,
Correct. Correct.
right? So at that time, my mom she ended up going to the library that we ended up renting the books. It was pretty far away from us, but she ended up going to it because she thought that I had the potential to work on my writing skills and then convert it
Hmm.
into my writing skills as well.
Hmm.
I'd like to really thank her in this occasion because without her, I couldn't have come to where I'm right now. So my mom, she ended up going every month once, and she
Hmm.
ended up getting me a lot of books at the same time. I started working on those books, I started reading those books, and I ended up really enjoying it. During the lockdown period, uh, I wanted to try something new myself. I said, being leisure, I didn't have much to do. I wanted to start writing myself. Whenever I read a new book, I always wonder how these great authors, they make these great books, which turn into huge successes, which readers around the world. I wanted to do something myself. I wanted to write a book myself. It might sound quite dazzling, quite a lot for an young kid, me being like around 10 years old at that time. but you may never know. You can find your potential at any time at life.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Yeah. So
Right. It
this
may be
this
like, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, go on,
So
man.
I just wanted to bring out a few points here when we are having this conversation, Sharwan, that it is so important for the parents actually to see that, to recognize actually the potential that the child is having, and to be able to bring that potential out by little being more mindful parent. No, it is Sharvan's mother who was so mindful that she brought those books. She didn't tell her, okay, now it is the screen time. You can sit down on the screen and you can just wail away your time. But instead, she took that risk of going out very far. And also, I'm so thankful that that library was open, because it was the opening for only for the essential things. But if that library people thought that books were so essential in those times and they were open at all those times, so really appreciate those people also for opening the library for that one day, so that people could avail that opportunity to take the books or lend the books from them. And that is how this young mind got you can get nurtured by all of those authors which he was reading for so many years, and he started to pen down his own thoughts when he got that time. And when we were having an intro, I was thanking Sharwan because he helped me to remember my school days where I was going to the library and taking up books. So I was really wondering, because those are the memories sometimes we just keep forgetting from our own childhood.
That's
But
so
when we
true.
talk to children and they remember all of this, so these libraries actually, and public libraries and school libraries, really help. And it is a different feeling to just hold the book in your hand than going to a digital library and probably downloading those books or hearing those books. I'm sure Sharvan will agree on that. That hearing the book or just reading online on an iPad or in Kindle is a different experience than just holding the book and reading from there. Yeah, and that is where COVID really played a great role for lot of us. Like not only Sharman, but lot of us, we found our calling through COVID times. And that is where Sharman also found his calling, and he started to pen down his thoughts. And but at that time you also had school, Sharman, that I just wanted to understand, because we were having online schools those times, and that was not easy to cope up with the schools and then writing. So how did you manage to balance all of that?
Okay. So during the lockdown, for the first few months, we didn't have school because our school was figuring out what to do.
Hmm.
That was when I started working my way into reading books. But once school started, we had school all the way till the evening from the morning. But sound quite tiring, waking up that early and going to go and working away all up into the afternoon. But there's one key thing that I'd like to talk about. That is what we call as time management, of course. I'm pretty sure everyone can relate to it.
Yeah.
Not only during the time when we had lockdown, but still today, you
Hmm.
know, time management is one important factor in my life. I hope it's the same for everybody because you have a lot of stuff to work under, and at the same time, you'll have to complete those at the particular time as well. For time management, what I do is I schedule all my work. I put on a schedule where I take all the important work first and I start working on it. As I
Hmm.
move on, the tasks become easier and easier. That helps me work my way up and complete all those tasks within that one day. At the end of the day, I also spend some time on myself. It's quite important that you end up, spending some time on yourself, but at the same time, complete all your tasks and all your jobs at that same time. That's how I reflect back and how time management has been really helpful for me.
Amazing. So we all struggle to manage our time. We and the day goes, just sometimes the day just goes by not creating any value out of that. But if we are able to really schedule and have a very important thing which Sharvanth has told us is that as the day progresses, you get to get your tasks a little lighter, because your energy gets a little later, less as you move towards the end of the day. So it is better to have all the big chunk of work done in the early hours of the mornings and the afternoons when you are more fresh. than when you are in the later in the evening. So that is why we have schools which are in the mornings, so that the children are in full energy and they can concentrate and focus more on what they are studying. And that is how we are, since early our schools have taught us that time management, that scheduling is there. But as we grow up, sometimes in the name of freedom we just lose our scheduling and everything, and we want to do whatever we want to do in any day of the like any time of the day, but that doesn't work always. So when a small child can work on all of this, I'm sure we all can work through our time and get the best result through the day. Yeah, so these are very important points which Sharvanth has told us, but I really want to let him share one small sweet memory about writing the books as he started to become an author when his first book got published. Any anecdote or any story you want to share with us?
Okay, Vam. There's one quiet, funny story I'd like to talk about, reflecting back on my writing journey. I said earlier, I was inspired to start writing, and I was looking for a book to write, any random book that I could pen down my thoughts on. That was when a few months earlier, it was just beginning of the year 2019. I wanted to, around like 2019, I think it's 2020, if I'm not wrong. But the beginning of the year 2020, that was when lockdown hit, of course. I would ask my mother to get me a diary, and I wanted to start writing on that diary. I wanted to pen down my thoughts on what I do every day, and I could reflect back on it every single time. And I'd asked for that diary. The fun thing is that she ended up getting me to it when I was in February. Absolutely, there was nothing that I could do about it. Since I had no value for that diary, it was just lying around, and I wanted to pick it up and start writing my stories on it. I ended up getting my characters, I picked up the plot, and then I worked on my first ever short story in that book. I reflect back to it, my writing comes from that one diary, which had been so late, in fact, that I couldn't start writing my diary on it, but I ended up writing my entire stories on it. I still have that diary because, of course, you gotta cherish what you had started with. That's one,
Absolutely.
of course, that's one fun thing that had happened to me when I started writing. And another thing is that as lockdown hit, I ended up going to my sister's house, my cousin sister's house, right? And over there, since I was planned to go for, like a few days at most, but then due to the lockdown, I ended up not coming back to my house for 2 months, right? So like
Yeah,
from 2 days, it had made its way to 2 months.
yeah.
So as I got my diary along right there, that's one good thing that I still look back into. Because if I hadn't, I couldn't have written all those stories at that time.
Hmm.
As I started writing, my cousin sister, she was extremely helpful. She helped me throughout the process, and we ended up working together to form the plots. She ended up writing a story on her own, and I'd also really been proud of it after seeing that she had been inspired by me.
No.
That's one cherishing moment that I could reflect back to. So that my cousin sister gave me those ideas, the characters, and a lot more. I couldn't have been here. Thanks to all of them for being a part of it.
Superb, superb. So it is so beautiful to listen to Sharman that small children getting down and not wasting the time on the social media. Instead, they are sitting down and thinking about the characters which they can put it down in a book, and thinking about the plots which around which the characters could move about. And it is so amazing that how their minds work, the children mind works, their small little brains bringing so much innovation around the characters, and how they feel that characters come live in their book. So really, really, I must applaud you for being such a wonderful small little writer that you are today, Sharman. And
Thank you so
as you
much,
move
ma'am.
forward, yeah, as you move forward now with our interview, we will just want to understand now. This seems so easy, that he got a book and he started to write, and then the characters came in. But I'm sure there would have been a lot of challenges that you would have faced during the course of writing, publishing. And then again to keep yourself motivated, like one book, okay, done, author ho gaya, it is written in your name that you are an author, and probably that would have been all, but you continue to write, you continue to evolve, and you continue to make different stories. So how did this all come about? What keeps you motivated, and what were the challenges that you have been facing?
Okay. Talking about the various challenges that I've faced so far, one of the main things is what we call as writer block. Almost every single writer and also reader can experience to it. Because
Yes.
when after a lot of time when I started writing something, you might come to a point in which there's absolutely nothing to write more on. That's
Hmm.
what we call as writer block. The
Right.
same occurs for almost every single writer. Whenever they have a good content, but they end up losing ideas on it, and you
Hmm.
cannot work on it further.
Right.
I've been, got a lot of writer block before. There was this one time when I had written about 30 pages of a book, and I ended up scrapping the entire thing because of this thing called writer block. I
Hmm.
didn't have any more ideas to work on to what I've written before. That's one primary challenge that not only me, but every single author faces. Second challenge would, of course, be when I wanted to publish my first book. Since I was around 10 years old at that time, absolutely no publisher wanted to publish my book because, first of all, they thought that it was a waste of time, and they also thought that it wasn't going to be that big of success. So I couldn't publish my first book when I wanted to. After a lot of publishers, a lot of days had gone by, my mother, when she was at her office, she ended up calling to me, and I asked her what's up. She was like, "We had finally found a publisher to publish your first book." And that was one of the most happiest days that I've ever had. Finally finding a publisher who could work on my book and get it into reality, publish it into reality. And I started putting all my effort into my first book, and I ended up sending it to them, and I ended up publishing it. Age was one important factor that had got me down when I wanted to publish my book. But I think that age is just a number after all. You can achieve in any point of life, let it be 10, let it be 60. You can always work on what you like, and you can always achieve something. That's one key factor that I talk about in every single speech and podcast. After all, of course, age is just a number. You can
Yeah,
work on your dreams at any time that you'd like.
absolutely.
Talking about what kept me motivated, this might come to a shock. It might come to a shock to a lot of you, but the one thing that kept me motivated was my parents,
Hmm.
and most definitely my mother. When I started reading, though I was extremely interested towards books, there was a few time when I wanted to spend some time on watching television or whatnot. But my mother, she was always there pushing me to continue reading. Though it might sound a bit, hard on me, I think that it was all for the betterment of myself. It was all for my very own good. And of course, I can see the success today. After all those years of her pushing me to what I'm today, I'm able to talk a lot more. I'm able to write a lot more, and I'm more better than what I used to be. Of
Hmm.
course, there must be some person pushing you from behind so that you can achieve success in your life. So of
Right.
course, my parents, they kept me motivated to keep on reading books and to keep on writing books. And
Hmm.
without them, of course, I couldn't have read so many books and written 4 books as of now.
Absolutely. So wonderful. Parents play a very key role in hampering or taking it forward for a child. It can go both the ways. Like some children are really saying that the challenge is from the parents. And some children say that the challenge is not from the parents, it is the support of the parents that is helping them to move forward in their life and achieving their own dreams. So Udan is all about giving wings to your dreams. That is what we do here in Udan, and that is what the parents need to do. They should be able to give that wings to the dreams of their own children by helping them understand that what is the right thing for them to do. And when they are doing something out of the box, it is always good to support them, because Gen Z is actually doing something very different nowadays. So again, Sharvan, thank you so much for being such a wonderful author that you are. But who is your favorite character, if we can just ask you in a very quick way? And also, one more thing I wanted to ask you is about you were telling me that at home you have all the leisure to work on whatever you want because you don't have a sibling. So some take on that also to let members of the children understand this. Yeah.
Right. Talking about my very own favorite character in the books that I've read so far, it's pretty hard to get down to one since I've explored a lot of genres, a lot of books, and each book that I've picked up so far has been my favorite.
Hmm.
Of course, I couldn't let go on one single book, but overall, if you ask me, characters like Sherlock Holmes, Katniss Everdeen, and Harry Potter, and there's a lot more that I'd like to talk about. The famous fight, the Secret Seven,
Yeah.
and all those classics, of course. There's
Right.
so many books that I've read, and all my characters have been my favorite. Picking up
Yes.
one is indeed going to be a pretty hard task for me.
Any character of your own book?
Of course, it's going to be the protagonist, right? Rohan, who is the detective. Uh, he's a detective who goes on solving mysteries. Each book contains a separate mission that you need to solve, and he
Mhm.
has a team with him in an agency, what we call as a detective agency. He has an assistant of him called Macron, and he also and also there's teams with in this detective agency that they work together with. Each book is a separate adventure, a separate mystery that he ends up working on and solving it. So that's one thing. Next question, quite an important yet funny question. Without siblings, right?
Yeah.
I could be more productive, of course, but that's one thing. But there's another thing, other side to it. Since I do not have any siblings, I feel quite lonely at times.
Hmm.
You know, uh, of course, siblings can be quite annoying. They can, pick on you at any time that they want. But without them, you're gonna feel lonely as well. Same
Yeah.
occurred to me. During lockdown, if I hadn't had my cousin sister working with me, I couldn't have made such a good progress in my book. Since I had something to work on with, to share my thoughts with,
Hmm.
and she had really helped me to get to get my characters in and my plots in. So if I hadn't had any cousins as well, since I already didn't have any siblings, if I hadn't have any other cousins as well, I couldn't have made such a good progress in my books. But since I had her during the lockdown period, I was able to improve my plot and improve my character as well, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes they can be annoying, but there's always a worth for every single person around you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just wanted to bring about this point that friends and your own family, your own cousins, and your own siblings around you play a key role in our lives. So, if children just want to have their only screens with them, those screens cannot be your friends and family. But you really need physical intimacy, you need physical conversation and physical connection with people around you to keep you motivated, to help you, support you. And that is the point I just wanted to bring about by what Sharvanth has just shared with us. And he has been able to influence few of his friends to write the books. That also he has been able to do wonderfully well. And he has been able to read all the genres, which is a great thing. He has not restricted himself to reading only one kind of books, but he has flexed and he has able to read every genre so that he can find his own genre, that what really interests him. And that way his actually his faculties would have really developed to understand the whole scenario of the literature that he has read. So amazingly well doing, Sharwant. I'm sure people and children, especially who would be really listening to this podcast, will be really inspired by you with your journey of writing, and they will start to try their own hand on writing, I'm sure. But still, I want you to share a small message for the audience.
Okay. So this message that I'd like to convey right now, I give it in every single speech that I've been to, because it's one important message that not only to all the young viewers watching this, but also to the parents that I'd like to convey to. That thing is, you can never find, you know, the you're okay. I'll just come back to it once, right? Okay. There's one thing that I'd like to share to every single parent and every single young adult that who are watching this. That is, you can never find your achievement when you want to.
Mhm.
Okay, my bad, mom. Just like give me like 1 second.
No problem, no problem. We can edit it.
Yeah, mom. Yeah, mom. This point, like, I just right. Okay, I'll just come over it again, right? Potential is something that every single individual has. It might be, at a different stage of life for one person, but it might be at a different stage of life for another person. It doesn't usually matter. When I was around 7 years old, I didn't know that I had the potential towards reading. And eventually, when I was around 11 years old, I didn't know that I had the potential to write it, to start writing a book. The same goes with everybody. It's not an instance that you find your potential. You have to work a lot of time for it, and you'll eventually come across it. I
Hmm.
wasn't interested towards reading. I wasn't interested towards writing when I'd started. But after I'd found that I'd been interested towards it, I held on to it for dear life,
Right.
right? Because
Absolutely.
I'd been so interested by it and I wanted to keep it as my passion. Same goes with everybody. You never know what your potential is unless or until you explore a lot of things at the same time. You have to think out of the box, you have to work on several aspects that you like the most. And eventually, one day or the other, you'll find something that you're really good at, something that you enjoy doing at the same time. At the same time, you enjoy doing it at the same time. At the same time, you're really good at it. The same goes with everybody. Potential is something that you do not get in one day. You have to work hours or even years for it to eventually find it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very well said, Sharwan. Because we all have not every reader will become a writer. That is one thing you have to understand. Just because you're reading books, you may not become a writer. You may become a publisher as well. That's okay. Or probably you may become a scientist if you're reading the scientific books also. But that is also okay. Important is that you have to find your own potential. No, you find your own purpose in life. When you align your passion with your purpose, you become successful. That is the mantra to be successful. That is what I believe when I speak in my podcast and in other places also. We have to align our first we have to find our own potential, then we have to find our passion, and then we have to align with our purpose. With these three P's, we are able to be a successful person, a happy person, and this happiness becomes a very sustainable happiness, which is not very short term happiness. So, thank you so much, Sharma. It was really amazing and really wonderful to speak to you at length regarding your journey as a writer, as an author. And I wish you all the best for your future books also. And let
Thank you
us
so
really
much, ma'am.
lot of more books to come, and let's really have big presentations for you. And I'm sure a lot of people will try to now read his books, Sharman's books. You can go back and start to find his books and start to read the books. And he writes a lot of articles, which he was saying attached to a lot of organizations where he is putting his articles, his thoughts there. That is also an amazing journey. He is really contributing in a very value creating way towards the writing field. So great having you, Shawan. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And also thanks to all the viewers that had watched this, because I hope there's something that you learned from me today, and I'd be really happy if you do so. Thank you so much.